Hello again. Thank you, Alison. So yes, continuing the journey now, we're going to look towards college and university and the workplace, as Alison says. So, do you remember back at school Venn diagrams? This shows the overlap between neurodiverse conditions. Alison's already touched on this. I want to just talk about this a little bit further. You can actually see all the different conditions here in the bold type. Each bubble's got its own bold box. You can see dyscalculia, dyslexia, ADHD, dyspraxia there. What I really want to talk about here is that the overlap, the bit in the middle, the overlapping bit, you can see, for example, with dyslexia and ADHD, that the overlap there is a lack of concentration and distractibility. It's not unusual at all to have more than one condition. And some indicators, for example, some of the sensory indicators are very, very common to be either oversensitive to things like light and noise and touch. And these are present in many conditions. Alison has also mentioned that the bit in the middle, the kind of commonality with some of the areas you struggle with. And I'm not going to go through all of those because she's already talked about this. But what I do really want to talk about and kind of impress upon you is the impact that all this can have if you don't really understand what's going on, and if there isn't kind of parental support, school support, family support, if you yourself don't have an understanding, the impact that can have on a young person and their behaviour is huge. Alison's spoken about self-esteem. I can verify that. I worked at criminal justice for 3 years on a literacy project supporting young people. And I worked with a group of young men, and together as a group, their behaviour was, you can imagine, it was pretty bad sometimes. But when you got them on their own individually, the indicators of dyslexia were huge. And one of them, said to me he couldn't read at all, and he just felt so stupid, and he couldn't admit it to anybody. So there's something in there about, the assumptions we make about people, but the struggles that they can be having, and covering it up is a huge thing. And covering it up in schools, that can be behavioural issues. It can be being bullied or doing the bullying, being the class clown, but that's all to do with distraction and diversion. So learning about your condition is key. What are the strengths? What are the challenges? And it's having that autonomy to really own it and to move forward and to work to your strengths. And that's the real message that I'm trying to get over tonight. So we're going to have a look now at challenges in the workplace. Some of the challenges we've already learnt about in school. Just to echo again what Alison said, it's not about the condition, but it's what you're finding difficult. So if your area of difficulty is remembering things in the workplace, what does it mean if you're forgetting instructions and sequences, how to do something? Think about the impact that can have on your daily work and not getting things done. An awful lot of work is round about organising, being able to multitask, being able to prioritise and plan. Again, if that's not one of your strengths, what does that mean for you? How are you going to cope in the workplace? Managing time is a huge thing as well. Being on time for meetings, missing deadlines, sometimes due to perfectionism, that can be a huge barrier to actually finishing tasks. The bit at the bottom as well is very important as well, understanding neurodifferences. You'll be aware of the challenges and what you're finding difficult, but are you aware of your strengths? Is your line manager, is your bosses aware of your strengths? Could it be that you're actually suited to a different job entirely, where you can play to these strengths instead of struggling with the challenges that you're having? So a few more challenges here. Things like concentration can be very difficult. If you've got heightened sensitivity to sound and movement, that can be very off-putting in the workplace if there's lots of people moving around in an open plan office. Communicating verbally can be very difficult for some people if we all interpret words in a different way. Our own experiences give us our own connotations of words. So when you're receiving instructions from somebody, how I interpret something might not be how you interpret something. So it's crystal clear when you're giving instructions to be very, very concise, but also when you're receiving instructions, just to check in that you've got it right. Because in the workplace, misinterpreting instructions can lead to mistakes down the line. I'm not going to go through and read all of those, that it's too much to take in. And it's this thing about practice what you preach, and information overload is something that you really want to try and avoid. You will get copies of the notes and the slides, so you can look at this at your leisure, and I'm just going to move on to the next one. This next slide, like the first one I did all about the road, a big thanks to Genius Within actually for letting me use this. Dr. Nancy Doyle, the CEO, gave permission to talk about this, so thank you. This shows the spiky profile, which is associated with neurodifference. So what we've got here up the side, we've got IQ. Along the bottom, we've got cognitive abilities. And you can see there's a dotted line, roughly about 100. And there's a red jaggy line, which is a neurotypical person. And there's a blue jaggy line, a bit more jaggy, which is somebody with dyslexia. So it's common sense, and everybody knows that people are generally better at some things than others. Everybody is. But if you're a neurodiverse person, what tends to happen is the challenges, the troughs, are much, much deeper and challenging. Things are harder. But the gifts, the strengths are much higher. So we're just going to have a little look at some of the challenges. So you can see that there's a date, September the 6th. So this is about having a bad memory, forgetting appointments, or even not using calendars at all, or diaries. That's very, very common. Not everybody likes to do that at all. The filing tray, being very disorganized. ADHD tends to, profile with ADHD tends to be now or not now. So you've got two filing piles in your office, things that need to be done now, and anything that isn't right now is over there in the big pile. Now that works fine for today, but what tends to happen is that the stuff in the not now pile suddenly becomes now, and there's a deadline tomorrow happening, panic stations, you've got nothing done. So organising can be a huge, huge difficulty. The clock represents poor time management, and again that's being late for meetings and missing deadlines. And the blah, 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 chatter, chatter, little speech bubbles represent being very easily distracted by sound and people talking around about you. So these are the challenges, and you can see how deep these are. These cause real problems within the working environment. Strengths. Now we have spoken about the strengths. So thinking outside the box, the little box with the arrows, this is a strength we see time and time again with a neurodivergent profile. What this is coming up with solutions to problems that other people wouldn't normally think of. For example, IKEA founder Ingar Kamprad came up with this idea of a different way of packaging, a different way of selling things to people. Nobody had even thought about doing things this way before. Likewise, Anita Roddick of the Body Shop came up with the idea of displays and fillable bottles and everything. Nobody had ever thought of that before. In the workplace, the neurodivergent employee can be the one that comes up with a completely different idea that's so out the box, and boy does it work, because they've got this ability to do the whole 365-degree different perspectives, you know. The next one, seeing the big picture, is the little jigsaw. So that's about needing to have all the information for a particular project to see what your little bit is about. It's not about working in silos, it's needing to see everything and how your little bit fits in with everything else. Making links and spotting patterns is the little kind of blobby diagram. What this could represent is, for example, a radiologist looking at x-rays, looking for anomalies in an x-ray. It could be an accountant spotting patterns in numerical data, looking for fraud, that kind of thing. GCHQ were advertising for neurodivergent, I think it was autistic individuals, to go and work for them, because these are the people who best spot patterns and things and attention to detail. The 3D thinking is seeing a finished picture in your head and just knowing that's the right thing. So within the workplace, what can happen is that through reasonable adjustments, or for example using strategies gained from coaching, the troughs are raised and the strengths are still there. So it's a much more even playing field. Now, I mentioned reasonable adjustments here, so I just want to look at the legalities of all this. Quality Act of 2010 says that a person has a disability if they have a physical or a mental impairment that has a substantial and a long-term negative effect on their ability to carry out normal day-to-day activities. Now, what is really interesting, the key point of all this, is that a formal diagnosis is not needed. It's the effect, not the cause. It's the impairment that matters. And employers are required by law to make reasonable adjustments to enable the employees to reach their full potential. So that could be things like adjusting your working hours, or providing specialist software like Dragon, something like that, to help you to do your job better. So workplace needs assessments. These can be organised through HR and carried out by an occupational psychologist. They can make recommendations for a reasonable adjustments, and these are some of the ones I've just spoken about, things like assistive technology. It might be workplace coaching, it could be noise cancelling headphones, and it supports our employees with a whole range of conditions, the ones that we have just spoken about. So yeah, organised through HR at work or through private companies. That's a workplace needs assessment. Reasonable adjustments. Now, Alison has also mentioned this as well. If we look at the three little pictures here, equality, treating everybody the same. That's fair, isn't it? Well, it's maybe fair, but it's not going to solve the problem. Here we've got the wee chap at the end. He's been given the same size box as the others, and he still can't see over the fence. If you go for an equity approach here, you've given the wee chap at the end 2 boxes, so we can now see over the fence, which is great. But wouldn't it be better, this is within a workplace, if you removed the fence in the first place, if you remove the barriers generally? What works for one neurodivergent individual in the workplace works for everybody within the workplace, and this is known as systemic inclusion. It's where you include everybody right across the organisation, and you're removing the barriers for everybody. Access to work, I just want to mention this as well. Access to work helps you to find work or to stay in work if you've got a physical or a mental condition. It's a government website. The type of support you can get is a grant to pay for practical support. I supported somebody who was assisted on the bus, an autistic young man who wasn't able to travel on the bus himself because of his anxiety and his kind of oversensory stimulation. But if he had a support worker on the bus, that helped him. So that was an example of that. Interestingly enough, I also know of somebody else who accessed some admin support. I think he got about 12 hours online admin support, because admin was something he just struggled with as part of his job. Can help with managing mental health at work and supported job interviews as well. So that's website details there for you for access to work. Something else that's pretty close to my heart is the disabled students allowance. My daughter, eldest daughter, has got dyspraxia. She went to college and she was able to apply for disabled students allowance. And when she got to college, she was assessed and she was given some specialist equipment. She was given a big box full of a laptop and a whole range of software, and you also can get tuition as well. So if you're going through college or university, DSA is also there to support you too. So moving on to the workplace now, we're just going to have a look at some strategies here to help you in the workplace. So I've got 3 columns here, one for time management, one for communication, and one for literacy. I haven't got time, unfortunately, tonight to talk through each and every one of these. So I'm just going to pick out a couple of favourites that are quite good ones. And there's a lovely one, the one at the top of the list, time management. If you can categorise tasks into nibblers of time, gobblers of time, and munchers of time. And a nibbler is a little task that's only going to take you a minute. And the gobblers are big tasks that might take 2 hours, and a muncher might be half an hour. So it's a good way to categorise tasks. And it can have a visual image as well. It can be a fun thing. It's a good way to start off your day once you've done a to-do list. If you can get a couple of nibblers done immediately, those little 1-minute tasks, get them ticked off and done, and that's you off to a good start. So that's what the nibblers, gobblers, and munchers are. Another favourite one is beware of procrastination and eat the frog. And those are the little tasks, the froggy tasks are the tasks on your to-do list that stay on your to-do list week in and week out. There's that task that you've been putting off and putting off and putting off. And the longer you're putting it off, the worse it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And we call this a frog. So the idea is, if you were to do the task, if you were to just eat the frog, when's the best time to eat the frog? And the answer is when it's a little frog spawn or a tadpole, not when it's a huge, big, bloated frog. Don't leave it and let it get worse and worse. Do it now. So that's eating the frog. I had a chance to read some of those other strategies. There's some good ideas there. Just 1 or 2 more we'll just have a little look at as well. The themes here are concentration in a column, organising, and memory. If you work in an open plan office and you're distracted by noise, people at the photocopier going in and out to the loos, making cups of tea and all that kind of thing, sitting in the middle of the office is not a good idea. So if you can move into the corner of the office, you reduce the degrees of distraction from 360 to 90. It's a much, much better place to sit. Another good strategy to help with concentration, people know that the average concentration span is about 15 to 20 minutes. So you're all doing really well if you're still paying attention. So basically the Pomodoro technique you may have heard of is a great way, because basically you take a big task and you break it down into 20-minute chunks, and then you have a 5-minute break. And then you do another 20 minutes and a 5-minute break. And you do this 3 times. And then you have a proper 10-15-minute break with a reward. Time to get the galaxy out. But the secret of this is when you sit down to do your 20-minute chunk, you say to yourself, right, by the end of this 20 minutes, I will have done such and such. And you set yourself a goal for that 20 minutes. And it really works. It's a great strategy. So there are a few other ones on that page again, but as I say, we'll just let you look at this at your leisure. You'll get copies of this. And this, we're on to the last slide now. So I'm just going to ask Mo to come in here and talk through the primary education part, Mo.
Yeah, okay. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
Can you hear me, Alison? Yeah.
Yes.
You can. Okay, right. So the 3 of us thought it would be good for you to actually see our final slide, how the whole journey all comes together. And down in the primary education section, you'll see bottom left is a summary of what I really want you to be taking home with you tonight. First and foremost, partnership working between home and school. Our parents and carers really know their youngsters. they know their strengths and their struggles and anxieties. And it's so important that we find out what happened before they even came to school, what were their anxieties and their struggles. The inclusive classrooms and learning environments. Now, I was keen to add the learning environments because it doesn't necessarily have to be boxed within a classroom or within a school. Our learning environments go far beyond the classroom box. But it is important that wherever the learning's taking place, that it's calm, but also sensitive to the needs of all our pupils. And that no matter where the learning's happening, that our youngsters really do feel valued and that they can access everything within that inclusive classroom. Also, the differentiated curriculum, as Alison Timothy mentioned, it's so important to remember this isn't about being given a different textbook compared to the rest. This is very much about helping people access the learning outcomes through either reduced questions on a workbook or through IT, or as Alison mentioned as well, just having that calculator. It doesn't mean to say they should be doing different work. It's how they access it is the most important part. The other thing I wanted to actually impress on, especially my colleagues out there, the teaching staff, I really want you to think about unpacking the children's challenges and tracking them. Having that conversation with the youngsters about how they're actually doing things, trying to sort of work out what is their thinking, and is there a difficulty within that thinking pattern. Literacy and numeracy profiles should be maintained by all our teachers, and then tracking how they respond to interventions. The last one that I am really, really passionate about is right through this journey, as you see, through the blue primary, through the green secondary, onto uni and beyond. We are preparing our youngsters for life, not that next stage of their learning. It is very much about tools for life, and having the open discussions with your learners about how is it you did that. You know, like say I still do this even as an adult. I'm reading and I haven't a Scooby what a word means. So what's my strategy? Well, I'll look around that difficult word for clues. In problem solving, you know, you look for keywords in the question. What am I really looking for here? So these conversations that you have with your learners should be all about strategies, and that then formulates their tools for life. The other thing I want to add just at the end is it's not just about learning per se. It is about how they regulate their anxieties and emotions and strategies for coping, and also celebrating how creative they are. So I'm now going to pass you on to Alison Timothy as we go up the road heading for our green secondary education part.
Thank you, Mo. I'm passionate about the emotional climate of the classroom, and I just feel that teachers have a huge role here. They need to create an ethos of empathy and understanding, and that goes a huge way in supporting youngsters with neurodiverse needs. In order to support youngsters with neurodiverse needs, we have to have a good understanding of what their strengths are and what the areas of difficulties are. Comorbidity, it's really important that we understand there are many conditions, but there are many overlaps in terms of strengths and difficulties across those conditions. Self-esteem is hugely important, and young people are just vulnerable in terms of self-esteem when they are in a learning environment. We need to be aware of that, and we need to put strategies in place whereby we can nurture, boost, and enhance their self-esteem. And finally, assessment arrangements, which is a huge area to be discussed, and it couldn't be discussed completely this evening, but we need to just know that parents have an awareness that there are assessment arrangements. There will be something that suits their young person in order to help them to achieve their potential. So I would like to end by saying, let us go as parents and celebrate and enjoy the neurodiverse needs of our young people. And let us go as teachers and celebrate and enjoy the neurodiverse nature of the young people in our classrooms. We can all do it together. Thank you. And I'm going to pass over to Alison for her summary.
Thanks, Alison. I just want to do a brief recap of the section I looked at. We spoke about disabled students allowance, which you can get at college and university, and the assessment of need. And some of that can go towards assistive technology and tuition. We also looked at access to work, which is government funded, and that's practical support for example, communication at job interviews. It can be helped to get to work. You're protected by law. If you're neurodiverse, your employers have got to make reasonable adjustments. We spoke about a workplace needs assessment. This is where your workstations can be assessed. This would be done through HR. You might be recommended to have something like a standing desk for work, or twin monitors, or even coaching, workplace coaching. Assistive technology can be absolutely life-changing. I do quite a bit of training up at Call Scotland, which is part of Edinburgh University, and they are the assistive technology department. And one of the training sessions I did with them, somebody actually said there's never been a better time to be dyslexic than now, because of all the assistive tech that there is, you know, the speech to text, text to speech, and oodles and oodles of apps and software that can be used to support you. And it's just absolutely incredible the amount of stuff that is out there to make your lives easier, and so that it is a level playing field, and that you're not discriminated against in any way. And lastly, there are many strategies out there to support you in the workplace as well. So I hope you found this presentation reassuring that whatever stage you are in life, there is help and support out there.